Officials in charge of the MBTA are trying to save money and get better results through more use of privatization. The T recently switched to private security for its money room and is considering more privatization for its warehouse. Among those opposing the moves are leaders of the Boston Carmen's Union. We'd like to welcome its president, James O'Brien, and the delegate for Division 1, Alan Lee. Thank you both very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks for having us.
I want to start with James. Talk about your main concerns right now about things that could or maybe even already have been privatized.
Well, let me just say that the Boston Carmen's Union is one of 28 different unions at the MBTA. We represent about 4,100 workers, and we are basically the blue uniform, the train drivers, the trolley drivers, the bus drivers, the people who repair and maintain the trains and trolleys and the tracks, and we have other smaller classifications like the money room, which is something that they're talking about outsourcing, and the warehouses. And as far as the money room goes, we have about 78 employees in the money room. Before you even step foot into the money room, you go through a pretty rigorous process where you do query checks, you do psychological evaluations, you do credit checks, and that's even before you get into the money room. And we maintain the facility is a closed facility. What we do is we count the money in the money room and we collect the money in the money room.
Now, what about the people that you represent? What's the concern in their minds?
Well, the people that I represent are very hardworking people. You have, like I said, 1,600 members total that I represent, and they come from all various communities. You have all different ethnicities, black, white, all women, children, all races. And I think that our concern right now is these are people who've strived to work better and to work hard. They work very hard. This allows you to become a middle-class citizen. This job here, as you can see on the stage now between Jimmy and myself, that's 50 years of service. And most of these people come here thinking that there's longevity in this job to provide for their families.
James, I guess one thing I've seen some of the policy studies around this is saying, well, we can get outsiders to do it, well, with people working for less money.
Well, we haven't seen that yet. Privatization doesn't mean that it's going to be more efficient or less costly. It might be less costly up front, but sooner or later those lines are going to connect and it's going to be more costly, we believe. We feel as though the job should remain public, where there's a high standard and accountability and you have control over them. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be cheaper.
Right. Alan, one of the other things that we've been reading about lately is that there's concern about how long it takes to get, let's say, buses or trolleys fixed. And part of the problem is not maybe the work done by mechanics, but the time it takes for them to get parts.
Well, and you're right. You're exactly right. That has a lot to do with the leadership. We have members now, the mechanics that work with the 589, that are dedicated mechanics. And I think a lot of it has to do with them, like you said, getting the parts on time, getting them brought in so they can do the job. They are very hardworking people. So if the parts were in, we could get it done on time. And a lot of it, like we said, is coming in, they want to outsource it. But we think if you look internally and try to fix it internally, you'll have a better performance.
Yeah, just one thing in there, right? They have a central warehouse over in Everett. It's the main facility where all the parts come in and it goes out to the different parts of the system. That warehouse is only open for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. We're a 24/7 operation where we maintain the vehicles around the clock. Why isn't there a second shift that we've been advocating for? Why isn't there more employees delivering the parts? It's really a lack of leadership, and it's really a lack of investment. And I think the governor actually has said that. The governor has said that the leadership, the Secretary Pollack had said that there's a problem with leadership, and the Fiscal Management Control Board yesterday said that it's not the workers, it's leadership.
This is BNN News. We're talking with James O'Brien and Alan Lee of the Boston Carmen's Union. Alan, one of the things that we keep running into these studies is say, well, this other system in another part of the country, they do things for less money. But talk about, well, you're concerned mainly with buses and trolleys. And what's the difference between doing work on those things here as opposed to other cities? I mean, is it the climate? Is it the age of the rolling stock? Or?
Well, they are antiquated. You know that the system here is antiquated, and we keep harping on this. I think leadership should invest in our equipment. Boston, we transport, if I'm correct, it's over 1,000,000-something people a day. And I think if they invested in the system as they do in other cities, you'll see an improvement. I really believe that if they really invest in the system, you'll see better performance, because we would like to put the riders first. That's the Commons Union objective. That's our goal. We want to put the riders first.
Yeah. James, what do you think? Is this, if you look at how these comparisons go, it does seem that it costs more money to fix things.
Well, I think a lot of the comparisons come from different parts of the country. The T is a unique transit agency. We have light rail, we have heavy rail, we have buses, and we actually have commuter boats also. So not a lot of these agencies have the different methods of transportation that we have. And the infrastructure, we're the oldest transportation company in the system. There's a $7 billion infrastructure problem at the MBTA that needs to be addressed. And it's in the rails, it's in the signals, and it's in the switches. And that's part of the problem.
What about the money room? There was a look at operations in the money room, and there were some concerns raised about access to the room and maybe the way things are organized. What's the answer? Is that about privatization, or is it about management shortcomings?
Well, I think it's a failure of leadership. What happens in the money room is the antiquated equipment that's out there. Our men and women go out and they collect the revenue from the buses and the fare vending machines at the various locations. When they pull those boxes, the receipt might say you have $7,000 in it. When you go to count it, you only have $3,000 in it. So there's a problem with the equipment. There's a problem with the infrastructure there, and they can't reconcile the balances. So even if they privatize the money room tomorrow, they're going to still have the same problem of not reconcile the balance sheet. It's a problem. We count the City of Cambridge money, and we count the Mass Pike money also. We have no problem reconciling their balances.
Alan, finally, what about the mindset of some of the employees, especially in these areas where there's been talk of privatization? You've got some people, they've worked there a long time. I imagine a lot of them have good records. How do they feel, you think?
You're exactly right. That the mindset right now is that with all this coming out talking about privatization, again, I'll mention it, these are people who've worked hard to raise their families. I know myself raised 7 kids with me and my wife through this job, so it does provide you with a good income. These people are afraid that they're going to pull the rug out of them after they've been working so hard and loyal to the company. So the mindset right now is a little bit, they're apprehensive about what's going on, what's coming next, and what's going on. Jimmy and the board of 589 have been working hard, trying to just make them feel comfortable that we are there to fight for them. That's what the Common Union does.
Thank you both very much for being with us, Alan Lee and James O'Brien from the Boston Carmen's Union. In a moment, a push for more transparency on plans for school buildings.